Hey, Dr. T here, and welcome to my office. So I always like to do kind of end of semester recaps, kind of review what's going on, what worked, what didn't work, what I want to change for the future, etc. And well, it's a little bit late. I'm actually almost the end of my May semester course. That ends on Friday. I'm recording this on Memorial Day evening. If you hear some fireworks, that might be, well, that's why. But just unlocking the phone and getting some notes ready. So, thinking back to spring, here's a few things that I kind of took away. First off, so if you remember from I think like a January video, I hope I made this video. I was using for a couple of my courses. Oh, what is that thing? EMRN grading. So, excellent, mastery, revision needed, and then not accessible. And I was doing this for a series of quizzes. So what I like to do for my physical science students, the kind of questions I like to ask them are, here's a topic, draw me a picture, basically what you would put on the board to explain this to your students kind of thing. Because this is physical science for education majors. Okay, awkward pause to get the earth back. Anyways, so I've been doing a series of quizzes, and this is something I've done for a while where I do questions where I ask the students in my physical science course to draw a picture with illustration. So like, picture and text that explains the topic that we're covering. So if we're covering, say, simple machines, I'd say, hey, draw an illustration of 2 or 3 simple machines. Or if we're covering the atom, draw an illustration of an atom in a molecule or something like that. And the idea is if they understand what they're doing, then they're going to be able to draw a nice picture of it, and then they can label it, and hey, they know what they're doing. So what I ended up doing was I did EMRN grading, evidence, mastery, revision necessary, and then not accessible. And instead of trying to, give points for these, I put it on that EMRN scale. And so I said, okay, E is 100%. E is 100%. M is going to be 80%. R is going to be 50%, but you're going to have a chance to redo it next week. And N is not accessible. This is either really, really bad or you didn't do it. That's 0%, but again, you get a chance next week to do it again. So everyone got 2 tries on this one. It worked well. I was a little bit concerned. So back in 22, when I was at BCCE, there were several people who had done this, but they had mixed results. And so it's one of those like, I think this is going to fit well, but I'm really nervous about this. And it worked well. So there was a little bit of extra complexity of just kind of like, I switched to a quiz-based system instead of a test-based system, which I think is a good idea. Just kind of, smears out the assessment, lowers the peak workload. This is something I was trying to do this semester. Had a lot of workload this semester. Things got peaked pretty bad in a couple of spots, but just kind of averaging things out, it definitely did help things. And it seemed to work well with the students. Most of them got M's. I got a few E's. And, honestly, I think the grades represented what the students got. So, they got the grades I think that their level of mastery deserved. So I think it worked well. I'm honestly thinking of trying to switch some of the lab reports there. I don't know. I hate lab reports. And so I got to revise them somehow. The rubric is one I inherited from another faculty member. I do not like the rubric. It's got to go. And I don't know where it goes to, what it turns into, but it's got to go. And so it might be turning into an EMRN. I don't know. When I made the notes, I was more gung-ho into this than I am a couple months later because this video, if you see the previous video, this video got delayed. Next point. So starting in January, as I was doing all my prep, December, actually, I should say, late December, I was watching Ryan Macbeth, which in the profoundly unlikely chance you're watching, thank you. He had mentioned a program called Jira, which is used in the software industry, which he's a software developer as well as veteran. And This is basically a task tracking software. So you set a series of tasks. You have a team that you can work with. Now, my team was just me. And so you basically put tasks in there, and there's these series of sprints, and I'll let you Google most of this. But basically, it is a cross between a to-do list and a schedule. And it's like, this could be helpful. So I put everything in January that I was going to need to do for the entire semester into this kind of to-do list schedule hybrid. And yeah, it allowed me to get that view of like, okay, what do I got to get done today? Now, Jira is definitely feeling like I'm using an aircraft carrier for a canoe. It's got a lot of abilities that I'm not using at all. It's definitely specialized towards the software development industry. Microsoft Teams has similar approaches. And I ended up doing kind of a test pilot, setting up a team with myself and my lab assistants who are setting up the lab. I'm going to be taking over maintaining the studio lab coming next fall. Not necessarily taking over. I don't think there's any official positions or anything. But I am checking the record light, make sure it's on. But I'm definitely going to be taking lead because the other folks working there are going to be brand new. So it's kind of like me or no one. And so I set up this one. So instead of having just writing all the to-do list on the little glass door of one of our cabinets, which actually works pretty well, don't get me wrong, I set up Microsoft Teams. The school already has site license to it. And we did a couple dry runs. Like, I think this is going to work well because you can get that, once again, kind of a cross between a to-do list and a schedule. Part of me says maybe it's going to work better than Jira. And part of me says, no, I think Jira is going to work better. So I don't know. Both of them have phone apps. Both of them seem to work well. Both of them seem to be not quite what I'm looking for, especially for the one that's for just me, because they're both really meant for Teams. Microsoft, Teams. But it was really nice having this digital to-do list that, I didn't have to be in my office, and it was scheduled out. Jira was definitely a little bit weak on those projects where it's like, I need to be working on this one, but I can't knock it off this week. I'm going to have to push it back. There are several things like, I'm grading those stupid lab reports with the rubric that is not working for me. This is taking forever. And this was one thing that really kind of ruined April for me. It didn't ruin April, but it was not nice on April was that lab report. I've got to redo that rubric. Oh my word, I got to redo that. Okay. So Jira helped really well. I may switch over to Teams. Yeah, and then as I was mentioning, once I got backlogged, which I got really backlogged in spots, the sprints kind of created an issue with that one. Also, Jira really kind of has this idea of you haven't started working on it, you're starting to work on it, you've worked on it, you're done. There's really just to do or not to do is really all I need. I don't need that in progress part. Let's see. So I think that worked well. As I said, for the lab assistants, I'm really hopeful. I haven't done it yet. I just did kind of like, can you all see this? Can you all check things off? Yes. Okay, we're going to try this out. And they seem very receptive. They seem like they like the idea because we ran into several of them. They like show up like, do I have anything to do today? No, I'm sorry. This way they would know from home. Okay, so specs grading, it worked again. Once again, I am really happy with specs grading. Now, the problem I did run into is because the students get, multiple tries, it very easily gets to the student failed the first time, the student failed the second time. They got their third try, third and final. That third and final time is not until near the end of the course. A little bit of spacing to help me get things graded, help them get a chance to study. I don't want them just, guessing here. So they didn't realize quite where they're at. They thought they were doing really good, and then their grade kind of tanked because the learning management software wasn't taking into account the grade of the specs gradings until all of them were in. So it's like, I'm doing great, I'm doing great. Like, no, you're not. You failed 2 of your 3 specs gradings. My goal for the students is like, okay, you get some of the first try, you get most of the second, and hopefully you catch the ones you missed on the third try. And they were like, a non-trivial sum of students were not getting on the first try, not getting on the second, and then didn't get on the third. Which also indicated, though, that the specs grading has got some significant rigor to it. You either know what you're doing or you don't. You either get the answer right or wrong kind of scenario. So I'm really happy with specs grading. I don't know if my students are happy with it. And I do need to be a little bit more open with the students, like, hey, if you're not getting it on the second try, this is, you're not in a good spot. You want to make sure you get it on that third try. Consider yourself, first try, no big deal. Second try, this is where you want to get it. Third try, this is your last chance here, buddy. Okay. I had deleted most of the concept maps. Not all my courses, but a lot of them. And so this is an idea. I might stick one over here. So this is an idea where you take the ideas from a material, like the unit that we're covering, the chapter in the book or whatever. And then you take those ideas and then you compile them together in kind of a graphical representation. These work fairly well as kind of a way of assessing if the students have kind of got a general understanding of what's going on and making students actually think about what's going on with their content. However, I had been seeing a fair amount of kind of negative press on these, that, hey, they don't work, they're a waste of time, etc. So I dropped most of them. The students definitely, they kind of didn't do so well. I actually added concept maps back in, and I think I saw a little bit of a rebound on test scores. Not much, nothing statistically. I didn't have that many students that I did this with, so it's like, the statistical power here is terrible. But at the very least, I think I was able to do another form of assessment where the students were able to show that they did know the content even if they were struggling with the test questions. So I'm going to add these back, definitely into all of my content-heavy courses, because I think at the very least they do allow the students to show that they know content in a way that's not the test. And I think some of the students are really struggling with kind of the put on the spot, here, do the test kind of thing. And I still think that they do help get students to at least think about the content one more time, especially in a content-heavy course. So my physical science courses, they're coming back. The GOB 2 course, which is organic and biochem, they're coming back. They're probably not going to go into the Gen Chem sequence, and I don't know about the GOB 1 course. I don't know, because those are less content heavy. GOB 1 is more content heavy than Gen Chem. Gen Chem is much more math heavy. But I'm definitely bringing those back, at least for a non-trivial number of courses. I might put an EM-RN grading on those. I already kind of have a rubric that's pretty much like 100%, 80%, 60%, 0%, which is basically EM-RN grading, just without the ability to redo. So I might give the 60% ability to redo. I don't know. Just kind of see what happens. So I switched over my labs using a claims evidence reasoning model. I've got mixed thoughts. And maybe I need a better rubric. I don't know. It seemed like students were struggling a little bit to start with, and then just basically were knocking these out really good, getting excellent scores, and that their understanding of what they did really didn't match the scores they were getting. So it almost seemed like it was a little too easy. Now, I did a case study. It's based off of the Richmond Hills explosion, which was 2012. A couple tried to defraud the insurance company by blowing up their house and, leveled the block practically. And so, I asked the students to figure out, well, how much energy could be released with a house filled with natural gas? Went kaboom. And I set this up as a CER. And I had some groups just knock it out of the ballpark, do a really good job. Other groups really, really struggled. I think it was a good case study. I want to do a couple more. Definitely doing that one again. And I think the CER framework worked well for this, but also showed me that kind of critical thinking is an area where a lot of students are really weak in. And so I don't quite know where to go from there on that. something I need to do, more professional development on, figure out what I'm doing with. In some respects, the issue is, once again, I've got, 60 students in a class. So that makes things a little bit more interesting. I can't really individualize and tailor things to each student because, there's a swarm of them. Yeah, this thing was definitely much harder than I thought the students were. I didn't think it was going to be that hard, and the students were, they struggled on this a lot. One of the areas I'm seeing with CER, especially in my current, let's see it in my notes, especially in my current course, which I switched, it's an online course, they're doing at-home labs. Not a fan, but that's what it is. One of the issues I'm seeing is that, I've set up, here's the purpose of the lab, determine the empirical formula of copper oxide. And they're making copper 2 oxide, but if you know that, you know what the empirical formula is. And so, they make the copper oxide, they determine it's copper 2 oxide. Well, they're not understanding how to set up the claim. And of course, this being online, it's a little bit more difficult for me to help them. They're kind of having a little bit of a disconnect with the idea that the claim is going to be the copper oxide is copper 2 oxide kind of thing, or is CuO, or however they want to phrase it. And so there's a little bit of a disconnect with what is a claim, what is evidence, what is reasoning. And I think that this is actually getting into that kind of critical thinking area because they're just kind of jumbling things together. It's like, no, I want you to separate them out. Just like if you're lifting weights, you lift the biceps and then you do the triceps, and I probably got that wrong. And you're separating them out to kind of focus on each individual area. And that's kind of the idea with claims, evidence, reasoning. You're kind of trying to think through this and you're kind of structuring it so you strengthen your ability to think. And so this is an area where I need to work on, really helping them think through and do kind of the critical thinking. And once again, this is an area where I probably need to do some more professional development to understand how I'm going to help them do critical thinking. Because honestly, in many respects, that's going to be more important for them than like the rest of the course. So it's going to kind of be a big deal. The other kind of end of semester, my school system had this, sounds like a great, I shouldn't say school system, but just the school. The president and provost, a couple folks came up with this great idea where they were going to charge students, starting in fall, $28 a credit hour, and that was going to cover all their books. Now, if you run the math, that was going to be way more than they were already spending. It was going to be completely ripping them off. But I was looking, it's like, okay, well, how does that compare to what we're charging for our course? And for most classes, they were getting completely ripped off with this 28 per credit hour. However, I found out that a lot of our chemistry courses, they would not be getting ripped off. We were some of the most expensive in the school. So it's like, okay, I really need to work on my textbook, selection. I got to cut costs because this is not really okay. This is way more expensive than the rest of the school because I've got the lab manual, which is kind of a departmental dictated one. It's a custom one. I've got the textbook. Well, that went away a while back. We've gone OER for the textbook, have the clicker, have the online homework system. And it was getting, once again, just without an actual true textbook that they paid for. This is an OEM book. We're using OpenStax. Chemistry, for the first year of chemistries, were the most expensive ones in the school. So for my GOB one, I dropped the clicker. It's going to save me $50. Really trying to decide what to do with the online homework system. I think it is valuable. Currently using Achieve. I'm getting a bit disappointed with Achieve. They have not really done a good update since they used to be Sapling. So I feel like it's basically the same system with just kind of a little bit of a refresh that I used back in 2012, 2010, 2011, I guess it would be. And it's just kind of, ugh. They've made improvements. It's definitely newer, but there's better systems out there. Pearson keeps calling. I have had horrible luck with Pearson. So if I never have to use their products again, that will be too soon. Their tech support is just not. A few years ago, I had them basically, the tech support person told me, it's like, it's not my job to help you. call somebody else. It's like, okay, so I'm just up a creek. So I'm kind of looking at different homework solutions. My boss likes Alex. Alex really doesn't want to sell you homework without the textbook. Once again, we're way too overpriced. So this is definitely going to be interesting. The clickers, I ditched the clickers. I got a bunch more dry erase boards. So I've got a video I'm working on. I've already recorded it. I may just redo it on clicker options. But I switched over. We bought a big classroom set of dry erase boards with some end of the year funds. And so that way the students won't be paying for clicker for my GOB course. I don't know what's going to happen with the GenChem course because that's a lot more instructors teach that, but I may go clicker free on that one. I don't know. But once again, our cost to students is just too much. We got to cut that back. So going forward, I want to dive more into ChemLibra. LibreText is doing a great job. Had been to one of their workshops at BCCE last year. So I really want to do is not just use OpenStax, but use ChemLibra, link to a bunch of their articles. I've already started doing that. Not nearly as much as I should have, but I've definitely already started that. And yeah, this is going to be an interesting year going forward. So I haven't really quite thought about what I'm doing yet in the future, other than a couple of things like redoing that horrible rubric that I have set up. And so with that said, this has been a long rambling video, as most semesters are long rambling things. So I will see you in later videos. Have a wonderful day and best of luck.